Well, one president's trash can be your treasure. A decorative piece of wood from the White House is going up for auction. It is the only large piece left from the executive mansion as it was rebuilt after the War of 1812. Nearly a century later, Theodore Roosevelt took office and renovated the White House. The crews tossed out all kinds of materials on the White House lawn, including this plinth. A law student saved it then, passed it down through generations of his family, and that is what's going on the block now. Bobby Livingston is the executive vice president of RR Auction, where the piece of American history will be sold. He joins us live from New Hampshire. This is a fascinating story. Fill us in on some of the details. This is from the White House that was rebuilt after the British burned it?
That's right. James Madison rebuilt the White House in 1817, and so this particular piece was in the White House through Abraham Lincoln's administration all the way to Theodore Roosevelt when he renovated the White House. And they did empty out the entire interior and put it on the lawn of the White House, and we're going to burn it. And they invited the public to come down and take some souvenirs if they wanted to. But this is the only large piece that's ever survived. We've never in 30 years offered any pieces of the 1817 White House. It's quite historic and it's significant.
These days, you would take that kind of thing, well, not from the White House, but if you're doing interior renovations, you put it in the dumpster and get it carted off. Back then, they just hauled it out on the White House lawn, and apparently the guy who retrieved this particular piece was friends with someone who was doing some of the renovation or doing some of the construction work?
That's my understanding. It was such a large piece that they needed to pull it out of the fire. And if you examine it, you can see burn marks on the piece as well as 17 layers of paint that existed throughout all the administrations. So it's quite a significant thing to study.
I know that, I know that you come across some pretty interesting stuff at your auction house. I've actually bought some things from you over the years, but this particular piece might be a little out of my price range. What are you expecting this to go for?
Well, the experts, Mr. Seal has appraised this to be worth almost $500,000. Ooh. So, we've estimated it to sell for, $250,000 to $500,000. It's incredibly historic because historians can study it and see what color the White House was painted on the inside. It appears that through the 17 administrations that this piece was in the White House, they repainted it each time. And because there's no photography from that era, it's incredibly important for scholars to understand the history of the White House.
Do we have any idea where in the White House this particular piece was located?
Yes, it was in the main hall, we believe, outside the south room. It's a plinth. They call it the plinth. It would have been inserted into a niche, would have had a statue or a plant on it. There is photographic evidence of this plinth in the White House in a photo from 1882. So it's been authenticated by many people, and also the photo evidence, is a dead match.
So Abraham Lincoln would have gazed upon this, maybe touched it from time to time. Other presidents, anywhere from 1817 to 1902, the same thing.
Yeah, it's really a fantastic piece to know that Lincoln would have walked through this hallway, and so would have U.S. Grant and Theodore Roosevelt, who decided to put it out on the front lawn, didn't he? So it's an incredible opportunity to buy a historic piece of White House memorabilia.
The auction starts when?
Yeah, bidding begins on September 17th and ends in Boston on September 28th. The auction's live at the Royal Sonesta Hotel in Cambridge.
All right, Bobby Livingston from RR Auction. Oh, just a side note, it's going to be the central focus of one of our strange inheritance pieces on the Fox Business Network, because there's a whole backstory to how this piece came into existence and onto the auction block. Bobby, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.